Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here, for making it to the end of the second day. I would like to get a better idea of who is actually in the audience. So if you are a customer of Liferay, can you raise your hand? You're a customer? Okay. If you are a partner of Liferay, can you raise your hand? More hands? Okay, and I'm assuming the rest of you either work for Liferay or are one of the others. All right. It's been a few years since I've been here at Italy Symposium to be able to talk about the product roadmap. And what's really exciting to me is how, in that time, now we have a product portfolio. It's not just about one product. It's not just about DXP, but we have now DXP Cloud. We have Commerce, and we have Analytics Cloud. So my goal today is not to talk about one specific product, but to really talk about the capabilities of the entire product portfolio. So you can see the bigger picture of how everything comes together to deliver value. Okay, so I need to start with the usual disclaimer. Please understand that the following information contains forward-looking statements that outline our general product direction. It's provided for informational purposes only, and it may change without notice. So the warning here is that we're still building it. So we can't necessarily guarantee that how it will be built is going to be exactly as we describe it today. But what we're more excited about sharing is why we're planning to build these things and how we're planning to innovate to help you provide the right tools for your success. So let's start with the holy grail of digital transformation. And I think the way that Liferay sees digital transformation is it's a journey of continually adopting technology and relentlessly innovating. And when you're able to achieve some amount of success in transforming, it creates a very durable competitive advantage for your company in the market. But the reality is that many companies out there have tried digital transformation and they have utterly failed. Transformation of any kind is extremely hard. And so I mentioned to you that the last time I was here, I believe was a few years ago. By a show of hands, how many were at the Italy Symposium 3 years ago? Here? Okay, a few people. Great. I think back then I shared with a lot of you my personal journey for transformation as I was trying to find a balance between work and life. And I kind of want to give you an update on where I am on my journey for finding this right balance between work and life. So a few years ago in 2016, this was my calendar. This was my actual calendar. And there's a lot of days with pink. And let me show you what that actually means. For somehow, I don't know how my schedule ended up this way, but I ended up committing to a bunch of events before really thinking about it. And that really meant that I was going to be in 5 countries in 5 weeks. And in all of June, I would only be home for 9 days. And when I was home, I'd probably be jet lagged. I'd be very tired. And the context here is, this was when I was living in Madrid. I had moved my entire family to Madrid, my wife and my 3 boys. And so we had no extended family support. So my wife had to do everything by herself. And the other things that were happening around in June, besides my hectic work schedule, is I had some very important personal events. 2 of my son's birthdays are in June. And I would be home for those, so that would be okay. But the big mistake I made was somehow I forgot about my 14th wedding anniversary. And I was going to be in Frankfurt during that work trip. So this was a really big problem for me. And I was like, okay, I need to really rethink how I'm going to balance my work and life better. And I think a lot of times, the solution that most people come up with is it's either work or it's life. So let's just cancel half of the work trips and be done with it and move on. But I really wanted to see if there was a better solution that I can come up with. And I actually was able to do something where what I decided to do was, instead of going alone on some of these trips, I decided to take one of my kids with me. So every year, I decided that I would take one of my boys to a business trip with me. They would have to work during that trip, but also there would be one day where I would just spend with them in a new city having fun. And the benefits here are, I could actually really bond with one of my kids. It could be educational for them. And it would be less work for mom, because if I take one of them, that's less work for her to take care of 3 boys. And I thought this was a really great idea. So some of the things that I did that made it educational was at the France Symposium in 2016, I had my son Grant, my second, create this slide for me with the pictures we took. So he learned how to do this in Keynote. So this is what he made. Ooh, fire. So obviously, I was able to kind of incorporate both work and life together. And I think what that kind of looked like was something like this. Instead of one or the other, instead of blue for life and yellow for work, the green is where, in Paris, I took that trip with my second son, Grant. And, and one thing that's important to mention, because I forgot to mention this in previous symposiums and heard a lot from feedback from women about how I forgot my wife. No, I did not forget my wife. I actually took her to London to celebrate our anniversary early. I took my son Jared, the eldest, to Frankfurt on that work trip. And then when we went to Los Angeles, we all went as a family together. So this is great, right? This is a really innovative way to think about transformation and how it doesn't have to be work or life, but you can blend the two together. So it's 3 years later now, and I'm sure you're curious about what happened. Was I able to sustain this? Did I keep doing this? What happened? I think you can say that the entire experiment there was kind of a fail. I haven't taken my kids to any events since I did the initial trial in 2016. So what happened? What ended up in this ultimate failure? Well, what happened was during my trip to LA at the end of June of that year, I went to visit the doctor because I hadn't gone for a few years and I was overdue for a checkup. And I knew my overall health wasn't that great because I had torn my Achilles in 2015, the previous year. I stopped exercising. I was eating poorly, a lot of travel, a lot of work stress. So I knew that I probably wasn't, the healthiest I've ever been. But what I was surprised to find out is at that time, I got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So my A1C level was 7.0 and 6.5 and above is when you're diabetic. And not only that, my cholesterol level, like 200 is good, 200, 240 is borderline, 240 or above is high. And what I found out is if you have 250 cholesterol or above, you're in the 95th percentile. And what I found out during that trip was my cholesterol was actually 314. So that was, wow, just probably 99th percentile or something like that. I don't know, but it was really high. So what did I do? So I had to refocus my life on getting healthy. And what I did was I used a bunch of tools to try and turn my health around. So I had to make better food choices, take medication to reduce my blood sugar and cholesterol, exercise every day. I had to monitor my sleep because sleep is a big problem. If you're not getting enough sleep, it contributes to diabetes. I started tracking, my exercise, what I was eating, and I obviously had to continually check my blood sugar. And I think the story of my failure to transform my personal life, it's common among businesses as well that try for digital transformation. So Harvard Business Review, last month, they actually published this research, this survey that they did in October. And they conducted an extensive survey into businesses that try to digitally transform and looked into the reasons of why they failed. They looked at 1,350 businesses globally. This was across 17 countries and 13 industries. And these companies, during that 2-year span, had collectively invested over $100 billion in digitally transforming. And the conclusion they came up with of why they were failing, the primary reason was they were unsuccessful to scale the digital innovations beyond their early pilot work. Okay? And so when the researchers looked more deeply into why some businesses failed and some succeeded, there were 2 critical challenges that emerged from the analysis. The first challenge was disagreement about goals among the top managers. Now, I think for me, it's pretty obvious that if leadership aren't on the same page, it makes it difficult, if not impossible, to achieve any goals if those goals aren't aligned, right? But the second challenge that they outlined was a divide between the digital capabilities supporting the pilot and the capabilities available to really support scaling it. And in many ways, that's the problem that I faced with my personal work-life transformation. Beyond that first year in 2016, my body couldn't support my efforts at scaling beyond that initial pilot or test. And I know that Jorge shared this slide with you all yesterday when he was talking about DXP. And so I think the challenge for businesses is when you're trying to provide connected and consistent journeys for your customers, you can't forget about the digital operations that provide the foundation for you to execute on that customer experience. Brian shared this slide yesterday about customer experiences and about how what they don't see is just as important. If we're only focusing on top of the line, on the customer-facing interactions to digitally transform, the results will often be failure beyond your initial pilot or initial efforts. So if that's why digital transformation fails, let's look at what causes success. About a year ago, McKinsey did this global survey on digital transformations. And they've also found that over 70% of digital transformation efforts failed. That means less than 30% succeed. It's a very sobering thought. And their research led McKinsey to conclude that there are 5 factors that improve the chances of transformation succeeding. So let's look into what their research led them to believe the 5 factors for success was. Well, the first one was very similar to the Harvard Business Review, was that you needed to have the right digital savvy leaders in place. Okay, the first one is good leadership. That's for me fairly obvious. And then the 5th factor that they talked about was communication, and I think this one is fairly obvious as well. And then we have 2, 3, and 4. And for me, if I were to just guess about what are the factors of whether a company can digitally transform or not, to me, the things that would come to mind are things like, are they using technology? Are they leveraging AI? Are they, able to think of, how to really create great customer experiences? And those weren't the challenges. The challenges were all around the workforce, about building capabilities for the workforce for the future, about finding talent, about being able to nurture that talent and acquire it, empowering people to work in new ways, and giving day-to-day tools a digital upgrade. And if you look further into that McKinsey report, they found some really interesting things, like when employees generate their own ideas about where digitization is going to support the business, there was a greater chance for success. And so we have this concept that the key thing To really be able to digitally transform, and the only way you can succeed is you have to really understand that workforce transformation, it really is the pivotal foundation for sustaining and lasting digital transformation. So I want to talk today about how Liferay can do a better job of helping our customers, our partners, have a better chance at achieving digital transformation. We've thought about it deeply at Liferay and ended up with the idea that what we really want to do is empower you with tools for transformation. That Liferay could provide horizontal capabilities to leverage technologies that are transversal to all digital transformation use cases. So whether you're building a dealer portal, a partner portal, an intranet, or a public-facing website, there are transversal capabilities that we can provide to you so that you can empower your workforce to create these solutions a lot quicker. So as I talk about these tools for transformation, I'm going to be presenting what that tool is at a very high level. Then I'll dig in deep to maybe a feature that kind of supports that idea of transformation, and then move on quickly. This is not an exhaustive list of features that we're going to be building for the next release across all 4 products. But my goal here is to explain the concepts and the ideas behind why and what we're planning to build, so that with your feedback and participation, you can help us build the right tools and features to help you in your journey to transformation. So the first tool I want to talk about are channels of interaction. So what's a channel of interaction? Channels of interaction are any front end that your solution needs, and it's really oftentimes the core of the solution that you're using to engage your customers. Some of the challenges in creating these channels of interaction are that businesses need to rapidly create sites, apps, or anything in between in order to seize market opportunities. And we're not just talking about traditional WCMs that only deal with content. Apps require a far more sophistication and far more complicated or complex interactions and dynamic data. However, the IT resources to build these apps are costly, and their bandwidth is often limited. So we think a good DXP needs to enable IT to act as a force multiplier for your company, empowering both technical and non-technical business users to create channels of interaction. And Jorge yesterday in 7.2 talked about Liferay 7.2 and our new capabilities to be able to act as a decoupled TMS. And there have been a lot of sessions the last couple of days talking about the promise of headless APIs and the business values and benefits that you can derive from this approach. So we'll continue to invest in our headless approach, our capabilities for developers, but we also want to invest in reinventing how non-technical business users can create these experiences that cover more complex and sophisticated interactions beyond just content delivery and personalization. So one way to solve the problem of having to rapidly create these front ends is to empower your business users, the traditional non-technical people, that have business and domain knowledge expertise. And so they're able to think through what these solutions should look like. And then we need to empower them to build them without having to rely on IT resources or learning how to code. And earlier, or yesterday, Jorge showed in Liferay 7.2 how we made a lot of large strides in our WCM, in our site building capabilities, in empowering these non-technical users to create these experiences. And we want to take that further. And one of the ways we're going to do that is by introducing more types of powerful fragments. The fragments that we've built up until 7.2 have been focused on creating fragments of individual content. But what if you have a list of content or you need to show lots of content altogether? Well, one of the things that we're thinking about right now is list fragments. It's a way that you can easily show a list of content. You'll have an alternative to Asset Publisher, so you can drag and drop a list with no extensive configuration. We want you to be able to compose these fragments, again, by dragging and dropping components that developers have created for you. so that you're able to map it to content, to assets, to other data types, and then you can save it for reuse. And all of this is powered through a content feed, which, through rules like traditional categories and tags, or through recommendations, can be powered by machine learning. Okay, so another tool I want to talk about is data collection and ubiquitous analytics. And for any business to be data-driven, you need data, so I'm sure you understand the need for data collection. But what do we mean by ubiquitous analytics? And first off, we mean that these are analytics that are available for everyone, not just the data scientists in your organization. So our goal within the platform is to provide and embed analytics so that your users can make better informed decisions directly into the work process. And we want to provide all employees the tools to make the best decision in a given context. So this concept also includes, automated or fast decisions, concept where technology can really help accelerate the speed of decision cycles through automation and analytics. And digitally minded companies really need to be analytics driven to continually measure, learn, and optimize those experiences across the organization. And we really want to empower the digital workforce at a company to be able to do that. So let's dig deeper into an actual use case of how a content author, when creating a page, can be empowered using analytics. So using the data that's available in Analytics Cloud, what we want to do is we want to be able to surface up the right analytics for that content author so that in the context of creating this page, they're able to see, how to best create that page. So to start, we want to guide them to understand what are the objectives and goals for you creating that page. So that once they've defined their custom goals, Liferay can better understand the information that's important and relevant to them and show them that information. They'll be able to see where their traffic sources are coming from, see the audiences that are visiting similar pages, see how their content is performing. So these analytics don't require you to partner with a data analyst to make sense of and then make better decisions. It's going to all be there in context. So this approach to empowering the day-to-day non-technical users to have access to these ubiquitous analytics allows you to scale the analytics-driven culture of your business. We're also thinking about providing a performance dashboard for content authors so they're able to track the content performance of the content that they've authored. The dashboard will be user-centric and built around how content creators work. We want them to be easily understand the audiences that are visiting their content. So if you care about traffic, because maybe you're working on a public-facing website, you'll be able to understand who's visiting your content. And if you wrote the content to rank for a certain keyword, you'll be able to measure whether it's working or not. So kind of to bring this together along with the Analytics Cloud and the A/B testing that we've enabled, with the content metrics, with the goal-based experiences, you can use A/B testing to realize that cycle of continual iteration and improvement. You'll be able to create experiences, set goals, measure the performance of these goals. And when the goals aren't met, when the performance isn't what you hope for, you can start testing your hypothesis on how to fix those problems. So another tool of transformation is intelligence and automation. What do we mean by that? In this context, intelligence and automation is about taking traditional processes and streamlining these processes for efficiency to help you reduce cost. We want to help you automate processes through technologies such as machine learning and AI so you can really achieve digital transformation that scales. And for many enterprises, a good experience doesn't necessarily mean a pretty one. Efficiency is often what determines a satisfied partner, dealer, customer, or employee that's interacting with your touch points. So digital companies really need to leverage technology to streamline processes, automate those processes, and reduce costs. And automation, I think, is one of the key challenges of scaling digital transformation. So the one key feature that I'd like to highlight that we're thinking is this concept of the flow builder. For clarification, this is not just a prettier version of our current workflow capabilities. This would be something that could work alongside the traditional workflow use cases like content approval. But what we're trying to do here is we really want to help you automate and design custom flows of experiences, you can call them journeys, that go beyond a single transaction. The example we're showing here is actually an internal-facing one. It's about onboarding your employees that have been recently hired. So we're specifically thinking about use cases for journeys that aren't just customer-facing ones. So you can not only transform your customer-facing interactions, but really think about how you can do that workforce transformation to be able to support those digital ops required for those customer experiences. So our goal is to empower your non-technical business users with the agility to automate and scale common experience flows that are important for your business. So one of the things that you're seeing here is, again, the employee onboarding use case. So depending on whether the employee has responded to this notification for them to go to a onboarding experience, we can automate things like an email notification if they don't actually start the journey on time. And once they do, we can connect that with another journey, the onboarding experience. And then you can be able to create these custom and reusable actions that you can use, once defined, can be used here and in other workflows as well. Okay. Another tool is just accessible enterprise resources. And I think we're all familiar with this use case. It's the traditional value prop of the portal. And the challenge that a lot of enterprises face is that we have all this content, data, applications, services that are often locked behind technical barriers. Whether they're legacy systems or a lack of clear APIs, or just technical debt, companies need to learn how to unlock these resources through services and integration. And of course, any new service or application that you provide has to have the APIs to ensure that they can be leveraged throughout the organization. So one way to make enterprise resources more available is we're looking to build upon the foundation of the data engine that Jorge talked about yesterday in the 7.2 presentation. So instead of just the data engine and the APIs, we're now going to build a front-end UI so that business users can create custom objects. And Liferay DXP has always allowed business users to extend native objects by adding custom fields. But the idea here is that you'll be able to create new objects, and these objects will be built upon this drag and drop interface so that you can import structures, and you can import structures through spreadsheets as well. And the power of being able to have create those custom objects is that they'll come with APIs out of the box. So they're great and ready for integration. You'll be able to utilize these APIs to take data that's siloed in legacy systems or other applications or other platforms, and then bring them in through the data engine, and you'll be able to leverage that in DXP. And with the APIs, you can also create your own custom front ends, but still be able to manage the data that's captured in those custom front ends natively in Liferay DXP. And for those of you going to DevCon next week, I think the Forms and Workflow team will be demoing this capability. So when you start thinking about Liferay's capabilities for creating content for channels of interaction and the data engine that unlocks your enterprise resources, I think we can start imagining a more sophisticated enterprise solution platform that supports these more complex interactions between content, apps, and legacy systems. And a good experience, again, for enterprise use cases often means it's functional and efficient. It's not about beautiful design and animations all the time. It means that customers, dealers, partners, whoever are the people you're trying to service can get to what they need quickly. And so we're really seeing this need not to just build content sites, but also focus more on interaction-based experiences that reduce the friction of getting work done. And one use case I'd like to talk about that highlights this idea is record pages. So record pages are similar to display pages, but display pages are just usually about content. With record pages, the example we're showing here is creating a display page for an account in the dealer portal use case. You're able to map both content and record fields to a component. And we also want to support the concept of contextualized components. So what that means is a developer can create a specific component that's tied to a type of page, a record page, which then allows it to accept a context object and be able to understand how to display the fields in content correctly. Okay, so the last tool that I want to mention is quick deploy infrastructure. And I think there have been a lot of great talks the last couple days about the XP Cloud and what those capabilities are. But in order to rapidly iterate on your enterprise solution, whether it's portal, intranet, or public website, you really need to be able to release frequently, and you need a rock-solid infrastructure. So, with DXP Cloud, we support the DevOps story so that you can continually deploy all the things that Liferay DXP Cloud offers. And we're going to continue to, make this better so that you can continually build code and release it, monitor it, operate it, deploy it, plan, test. We also need to offer stability and scalability so you can deploy your solution with confidence. And DXP Cloud offers auto-scaling, self-healing, backups, and monitoring tools. We provide this infrastructure for you because we want you to focus on the business solutions that will actually allow you to digitally transform, not the plumbing, not the infrastructure behind the scenes that really won't change your business in any meaningful way. So as we look into the future, as we look across our product portfolio, these are the tools for transformation that we want to highlight. We'd love to hear your feedback about whether these are the right tools, whether we're missing some tools, and whether these are the right things that we need to build to help you in your journey to transformation. I want to end this on a positive high note, all to say that transformation takes a lot of work, but it's possible. And so even with my own life transformation, after doing all those things, after utilizing all those tools to really change my health, right now my blood glucose level is that of a normal person. My cholesterol is normal as well, and it really is possible. As much as you're afraid of that failure, if you have the right tools, you'll be able to achieve success. Thank you very much, and look forward to hearing your feedback.